Welcome to The Advocates. I'm Aaron Dean. House Speaker Mike Johnson is facing criticism for writing a foreword and promoting a book filled with conspiracy theories and homophobic insults. The book is called Revelist Manifesto. It was written by Scott McKay, a political blogger in Louisiana, back in 2022. The book pushes conspiracy theories like the Pizzagate hoax, which falsely claimed top Democratic officials were involved in a pedophile ring. The author also defends Joe Rogan's use of the N-word and labels poor voters as unsophisticated. At the time, Johnson promoted the book on social media and was even a guest on McKay's podcast. No comment yet from Johnson's office. The life of Matthew Shepard is being remembered in Washington, D.C. 25 years after his death. Family and friends gathered at the Washington National Cathedral for a special service, including parents Judy and Dennis Shepard. Shepard's aunt delivered a sermon just as she did 25 years ago in Wyoming. December 1st would have been his 47th birthday. Shepard was 21 years old when he was killed in Wyoming for being gay. His ashes were interred at the National Cathedral in 2018. The Matthew Shepard Foundation combats anti-LGBTQ violence in America. December 1st marks the 35th observance of World AIDS Day, an effort to raise awareness, research, treatment, and prevention. It's a time to destigmatize a disease that still disproportionately affects racial and ethnic minorities, as well as those who are gay or bisexual. In the U.S., approximately 1.2 million people have HIV, and about 13% of them don't even know it. The CDC recommends everyone between the ages of 13 and 64 get tested for HIV at least once as part of a routine health care. While life expectancy for HIV positive people has increased over the years, AIDS is still a deadly disease. The AIDS Memorial is a public space to help remember those who have died. They share pictures and captions about their passions and loved ones. Ron, hello. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having us. I'm so stoked to talk to you guys about the AIDS Memorial.
Yes, and we're so glad that you're here. So let's jump into it. Can you share with our audience, how the AIDS Memorial began?
Yeah, the AIDS Memorial began as honestly kind of a passion project. My buddy Stuart put this together back in 2017, leading into 2018. There was a ton of coverage around it because it was such a unique and cool idea. I essentially it started as an opportunity to share messages from people who aren't around anymore and didn't really have digital platforms in which they could share their own sort of story. And so my buddy created the AIDS Memorial as a digital memorial for all of those voices and all those stories. It was a way to take people's existing life experiences through the AIDS crisis and immortalize them in sort of a millennial way.
Mm. I'm sure you all come across so many stories of those, like you said, who lost their lives from AIDS. How do you go about telling their stories on social media, especially in a time where people's attention spans are not that long? How do you capture them in that moment?
Well, so it is a little bit of the like logistical challenge of something like the AIDS Memorial, right? Like the truth is, many people who suffered at the hands of the AIDS crisis were queer people, and
Mhm.
therefore people who didn't necessarily have like bloodlines or lineages that lived on beyond them. And so, in a lot of cases, many of these queer male-bodied folks were people that just like didn't have any family to like answer to. And so in those cases, we just try to use discretion and care, and try to speak to the people that we can get in touch with in those people's lives. In terms of the people who do have living relatives that we can find and locate and get in touch with, we of course are always sort of gauging them on what is and isn't okay for us to share. I found that there's been a lot of positive that's come out of the AIDS Memorial in terms of the friends and family of the loved ones lost. A lot of them really enjoy getting to connect with one another over their shared loved ones in the comment section of that page. So more often than not, people are pretty warm and welcoming to the idea.
Wonderful, wonderful. Especially so, like you said, it's so good to see that kind of community, that kind of important storytelling on social media platforms, especially with, all that's happening in the world. It's good to have something, what's the word? Heartfelt, pretty much, like you said. So, you all have been able to build a collection of these stories and a large following that comes with it. What does it mean to tell the stories of those who were previously silenced, to finally give them a voice, to give them a face? How does that feel?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. It feels like a lot of things. It feels beautiful. It feels inspiring. It feels touching. I seroconverted myself prior to the current one-a-day HIV medications that exist, and so there was a period of time where I was completely unmedicated, and then there was a period of time where I was really afraid of like what the transition into medication could look like, just because again they weren't like they are today.
Right.
And so the only thing I cared about at that moment was what are my nieces and nephews going to learn about me? How's anyone going to know I was around? Who's going to know I was here? And that then pushed me to do things like get involved with the AIDS Memorial and to do projects where I can leave a little bit of a legacy for myself. People could see my name attached to something that I'm passionate about and care about. Just on the off chance that I won't make it to a day where someone in my family, in my bloodline, might wonder things about me that they won't be able to ask. I at least want to be able to leave them a legacy of things that they can find about me so they know what mattered. And I think that in a lot of ways, it feels really honoring to be able to offer that to a generation of people who like they existed pre the internet, right? Like they existed pre the internet. Their journey is one that like isn't documented in any real way, and it's so similar to like I have Native Hawaiian family. A lot of the shared tradition. Sorry, I have a lot of Native Hawaiian family that share tradition by means of oral communication. Right, stories are only communicated verbally from one generation to the next, and for so long it felt like queer people in America were almost made to feel like that was our only opportunity to share our history is to do so orally. And I think that there's now lots of ways in which we can um, put pen to paper and identify which lives we lost when and whose lives we lost and what were they like. And we now have the opportunity to really, not to turn this into an episode of Black Mirror, but like, really like bring someone back to life in that
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Are there any? You've told a lot of stories, but are there any? Is there one in particular that you shared recently that really just touched you?
Oh gosh, I try not to choose favorites,
Yeah.
but the honestly, there isn't a post I see that doesn't touch me in some way.
Mhm.
Even if it's just a matter of like learning studying the photo. Even if there's like a singular image and you don't really have a lot to go off of, there's still so much to learn. Um, and so that would be my pageant answer. Is it's there's no favorites. I think in truth, the ones that really ring special to me are the ones where like yeah, it's somebody who doesn't have any living relatives, who doesn't have anybody that they can sort of expect to carry on their story, because then it means it's really special that we decided to.
And World AIDS Day is uniting people in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Does the AIDS Memorial have anything planned to honor the day?
The AIDS Memorial's honoring the day every day. You know, the truth is, yeah, we've always got stuff cooking. We've gotten to do some really cool projects that we're excited to share. But in terms of specific to World AIDS Day, every day is World AIDS Day to us, right? Like we're just out here trying to spread the message.
And the AIDS Memorial is joining forces with Madonna in an amazing way. Tell us a little bit about that. How are you all working together?
So Madonna's team reached out to us earlier this year, back in April, hoping to find some stories that they could highlight as a part of their tour, and we were stoked to be able to deliver. In large part, a lot of it was making sure that we could just get these stories to the biggest hurdle we faced was being able to get these people's featured stories to Madonna in a way that was still going to honor their legacies, right? Their living relatives, etc. And so we had to jump through a few hoops there, but ultimately it was smooth sailing, and we are really excited to be a part of something so iconic.
Please let our audience know how they can connect with the AIDS Memorial and how they can learn more.
Feel free to follow the AIDS Memorial on Instagram at the AIDS Memorial, or you can hit us up on our website if you know of any stories that you think might appeal to us or might appeal to our audience. Please feel free to reach out. TheAIDSmemorial.com.
Thanks so much for watching The Advocates. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store. I'm Aaron Dean.